kind of like a baseball team calls on a relief pitcher sometimes. Even though the pitcher's doing a great job. Mark called me and asked me to stand in tonight at the last minute, even though he didn't make it. So I asked him if he was ready, and if he wanted to go ahead. He asked that I proceed with the 45 minutes of prep that I had. Now, to get right to it, it wasn't quite that well. If you remember the last time I got up here, I gave a sermon on fear and worry. And this is kind of the second part of that. And it's kind of eerie how it fits together today of all days. So bear with me, this isn't pointed, this was already in the making. So if it hits a little too close to home, I apologize. When we come to dealing with fear, loss, and especially death, there's a few things that we need to take in practice. And the Bible gives us many examples on how to address that and how to find celebration instead of sorrow. As we deal with loss or death or dealing with anguish in our life, there is a process, and some of you might have heard this. First step is denial. You deny what's happening to you. Then there's anger that builds up inside you. Why me? Why does this happen to me? I've done this, and I don't deserve this. Then there's bargaining. God, if you only take this away from me, if you make this happen, if you make this Groundhog's Day, and this is all a bad, Bill Murray dream, and I wake up and it's all done, and we'll be back to the way things were. Then there's depression. You're dealing with, you understand that it's happening, that it's came to pass, but it's wearing you down. And finally, through all those processes, there's acceptance. Some people go through this process very quickly. Some people can get stuck in a step for a lifetime. We know some of those, we've seen it, but yet can I remind this congregation, just last year, at the beginning of the year, about this time, we got to see and witness what I see in my life of 54 years now, one of the greatest trials or journeys into what he knew that he was dying, and he did it with a smile on his face. He got up here and sang when he could and led songs, but yet he never let it get him down. He never let his family let them get him down. And as we deal with any kind of loss, any kind of troubles that might happen even in the world, like the Australian fires or the looming possibilities of this virus that has raised its head in China, as we deal with those worries and fears, let's remind each other that it is what God created. And we can find victory in the worst defeat. If a coronavirus would infect our community, even next week, hopefully we could find celebration that we have the ability to have God in our lives, and that we are not going to be a last-minute convert to what is inevitable for every person. Let's break down the word in Greek. And some of you might laugh, and some of you might realize, not studying Greek, and go, that's why he's named that. The fear of death is called thanatos phobia. Let's break that down. Thanatos. Anybody ever heard that name recently? If you watch the Marvel Universe, Thanos was the evil villain that with a
snap of his fingers, once he assumed the ultimate power in the universe, was able to snap out of existence people like Spider-Man and some of the other greatest heroes in the Marvel comics just by snapping his fingers. Half the population of the universe perished. Now we understand why his name's Thanos. Thanos equals death in the Greek word. And of course, phobia means fear, the fear of death. So, as people deal with loss and death, we got to realize that each and every person deals with those losses a little different and in their own way. Some throw themselves into work. Some go through a great deal of mourning. Some might find humor. Now that sounds weird, but I've seen it. Have you? Somebody that'll make a joke and you're thinking, how can they joke at a time like this? It's their mechanism, how they cope. So, as the congregation is dealing with people that deal with loss and death, let's be mindful that each person approaches that in their own way. So, each of us, both the person dealing with a loss or death in their family, and us as a congregation willing to console those people, we need to open up and talk about it. Don't sweep it under the rug. It'll only fester and become something that God never wanted it to be. That anger, that fear. So open up about it. Let yourself be vulnerable. Allow others to share your pain. It's okay to be grief-stricken for a while, to understand the loss of this life. And sometimes it's hard to understand the celebration that our loved one or that loss that we are enduring, that they're going home to Jesus. That they're being on their final, outside of this world. They don't have to deal with the evil of the world. They don't have to worry about what the coronavirus is doing, what Mr. Trump or any other president is doing or saying. All that is behind them. All they have is life eternal from here until the end of non-existence, eternally. Breathe a little bit, and after you've grieved a fair time, whatever that length may be, breathe and live, because you're living in this world. And we have works to do. We have hearts to win. And we can't do that if we're an ostrich, unable to move, with our head down along the ground trying to hide itself. We have to stand up and live this life, because we are still alive in this world. This earthly life is still going on, so we are in it and we need to do the best we can. Remember, Jesus was asked, a young man that wanted to follow Jesus, he said, I can't. My father just died and I need to go bury him. And Jesus' response was, Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. Now that seems awful callous. Did anybody ever kind of thought that was a little callous sounding? But one thing is about it is the dead aren't going to die anymore. They're dead. And the living have something that we need to do right now. And this was to save souls, to go to the next city. He knew that that city was very important of what was to happen in his lifetime and how he was going to have to do that to get to the cross. He knew how the importance of eternal was because he was Lord and Savior. So we're not so privileged to that, but we should know that this life, we have a purpose and we have an ability. We have free will to do as God would have us do. We can do our own thing and what we want to do, but God gives us the free will to choose to do His will. So let's go to the Bible. The first verse, if you guys can all turn to Revelation 21, verse 4. I'll read. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. And as we look on into the Old Testament, let's look to Psalm 147, verse 3. And He heals the broken hearted, and binds up their wounds. He courts the number of the stars, and calls them all by name. He is our great Lord, the mighty in power, and His understanding is infinite. The Lord lifts up the humble and casts the wicked down to the ground. He sings to the Lord with thanksgiving. Sing praises on the harp to God, who covers the heavens with the clouds, and who prepares rain for the earth, who makes the grass grow on the mountains. Life goes on here, and as we see John talking about, this one hits home as much as any. Let's turn to chapter 14 in John, verse 1 through 3. Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself. And that's where I am. And there you may also. Back to the Old Testament. On the next one, let's go to Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. I have not commanded you, be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So with death, with loss, with sorrows, with trials and tribulations that plague us in this lifetime, we should know that God is with us every step of the way, and the leader, the salvation that He sent by sending His only begotten Son to us to die for each and every one of our sins, gives us the chance to live eternal, even though we are each and every one of us sinners. So my point here is that as we travel through this life, we are going to face one cold, hard fact. Each and every one of us will have this body pass away. It will wear out. We will maybe meet a sudden death. Maybe we will linger. But until that time comes, we have a duty as a Christian to be a great example, to do good works. We can't just say we believe and not do anything about it. If we do, James asked, then what are we? Faith without works is empty. And Paul will tell you that works without faith is nothing. Together, they both agree, even though it seems like opposites. So I challenge you, and I challenge each and every one of us to face our fears, especially the thanophobia, the fear of death. Because the fear of death, when it's really said and done, should be a celebration of life. We should celebrate the times that we have with each person that blesses us, even if it be just a greeting, a smile, or a lifetime of learning and education and laughter, and sometimes a little pain along the way. But because they touched our lives, we are different for it. So let's be thankful and celebrate our lives. And I want to say that it hit a little bit more home as I have had to deal with people in the congregation lately that have not done well. I have personally struggled with what seems to be a endless stream to diabetes. No matter what I eat, it seems to get worse. And some of you might know, and some of you might not know. This week, this kind of hit home because I thought I had a scare with cancer. I had an area on my body about the size and a half of a golf ball that just suddenly appeared in a place it shouldn't have appeared. And luckily it was something that could be drained. It wasn't cancer, but it got me thinking that if my life was over, if this is the end and soon to be, have I lived a good enough life? And the answer is never, to me, is never. How can we ever live a good enough life? And that's the blessing of our lessons that we've learned from this Bible in this very church, as we do on Wednesday, Sunday morning, and we hear so much from Mark, that it can't be earned. Even though we do good works, it has to be through grace. And we're just so thankful that our Lord loves us enough that He created a system that we can't deserve, that we can't bargain with. So I implore you that as we get together and we deal with these fears, especially this fear of death, that we do mourn our loss, but yet let's not get so grief-stricken that we forget the joy of what was once was. Be it a relationship that is ended, be it a family member that has journeyed away and doesn't talk to you anymore, or be it a permanent physical death of somebody we know and love and respect. Celebrate when you can in your own way. And for those who are going through this that are very close to death and these trials and tribulations, reach out a guiding hand. We may never understand what they're going through. We've talked about this before in class at some length. Some people get very upset when they say, I can understand. But as I like saying about one president, he had one charismatic thing that really bolted him over his, and reach out to people when he was one-on-one. And he would say, when somebody would give that story of how things had gotten so down, he would reach out and with all compassion, and I believe sincerity, he'd say, I feel your pain. That's what we need to do. We need to feel your pain. Even though we may not understand what you're going through or what each and every one of us will go through. For one day, we're going to be on that end. And I will tell you right now, my last will and testament, verbally right here, I don't want anybody to mourn. Have a cookie. You know, have a celebration. Because without this place and the people that have passed through here that's touched my life, I might not have life eternal. So, death is not to be feared. Fear is not to be feared, as I said in the sermon before. I think Franklin Delano Roosevelt had it wrong. The only thing thing to fear is fear itself. I don't even think we should fear fear. Because if we have God on our side, who can be against us? This life is just a blink of an eye in the life of eternity. And we get to spend eternity with Jesus Christ and God because the system He created, and all we had to do is confess our love and devote that lifestyle and be as righteous as we can each and every day and try to bring others to that peace and happiness. And if we do that, what can keep us from heaven? And why shouldn't we celebrate when our loved ones are on the way there? So if anybody has any special prayer requests or confessions to make, please come forward at this time and bring them forward, and we will pray with you. We will be with you as Gary gets up here and we sing another song.